They claimed that for a girl like me, education was a waste of money. To host a wedding with golden napkins and a six-tier cake, they handed everything to my sister. Every light caught the sequins like falling stars as I watched my sister spin in her couture gown under crystal chandeliers at the edge of the banquet hall. Everyone was enjoying her fresh start by laughing, raising a glass, and taking pictures. I went unnoticed. No place card was ready for me, and there was no seat with my name on it. They had accommodated my sister's yoga instructor, old classmates, and distant cousins, but not me. I was given a foldable chair and informed that, if it was okay with me, I may sit close to the back. I remained silent. I simply nodded and grinned. As usual. Soon later, the speeches began. My father was the first to raise his glass, his speech already laced with wine and pride. "To my lovely daughter, our gem," he said, "we have always been proud of you. This day demonstrates how correct our belief in you was." Everyone gave a clap. My mother then appeared, dramatically wiping her eyes. She sobbed, "Sweetheart, you deserve love. You are deserving of everything and more. Our family has gained prestige because of you." My new brother-in-law's best friend, the best man, then cracked a few jokes that barely made it, but everyone still laughed. Lastly, my sister was present. With her drink in hand and her chin raised as if she had just received a crown, she exuded confidence. With a wink and a sly little smile, she said, "To be the only child that ever mattered." Everyone burst out laughing. Everyone aside from me. The sound, distant at first, then thunderous, smashed against me like a tidal wave. The words alone weren't enough. It was the proud expression on my parents' faces. The fact that no one looked at me was the defining factor. It was the space in my palms where a champagne glass ought to have been. I was old enough to drink, but someone had forgotten. Or perhaps they simply didn't give a damn. That toast. It was more than a joke. They all believed it was true. Really, I wasn't supposed to be here. I didn't belong in this family, in this room, or in this life. However, I was present. I was listening, too. I didn't leave all at once. I refrained from crying. I didn't cause any trouble. I gave a courteous grin. However, something was changing within. There was an odd balance between expectation and stillness when I was growing up in our home. I never made noise, caused trouble, or was the center of attention. My sister Lila had always played that part. Her brilliant energy and contagious laugh brightened any space. Friends, teachers, and most importantly, our parents naturally gravitated toward her. I used to believe it was simply her disposition. I used to believe that the reason she received more attention was because I wasn't as outspoken or as bold. However, the imbalance became more noticeable as I got older. My 12th birthday is still fresh in my mind. My parents didn't remember. Totally. However, only a few weeks prior, Lila received a surprise party complete with personalized cupcakes and a brand new bicycle. Mom looked at me and remarked, "Oh, is that today?" When I hesitantly asked her whether she remembered the day, not even an apology was offered. A plastic bag containing a toddler-appropriate clearance puzzle was thrown on the table after a brief trip to the local store. Still, I grinned, because I believed that decent girls did just that. And year after year, I continued to do just that. I continued to smile, remain silent, and contribute positively. I did the dishes on my initiative. Every morning, I packed my dad's lunch. Even though it meant forgoing the snack I wanted, I scrubbed the stairs, cleaned the windows, and made sure Lila's favorite cereal was in the pantry. Our house had an invisible scoreboard all the time, but I never seemed to get any points. My secret dream was to attend college. I was genuinely afraid to talk about it at home. I was aware that money was limited, and that Lila was already planning a lavish wedding to her fiancé, Tyler, which included a destination ceremony, a designer gown, and all the luxuries. I heard my parents discussing using their funds to pay for it. "It's an unforgettable experience," my mother smiled. "She is deserving." I felt like screaming. I held back my scream. Rather, in between diner jobs, I began applying for scholarships in the library. I would return home with sore feet and bloody fingertips from hot water or broken glass, but I would never speak. Then the life-altering family meal arrived. I recently received an acceptance letter from a reputable state university. not an Ivy League one. I could actually go if I could pay the remaining balance on my partial scholarship. With a shaky voice full of hope, I raised it at the table. I entered Southridge. If I can receive assistance with the remaining tuition, I might be able to attend. My father didn't even raise his head from his meal. My mother sighed as if I had requested to relocate to Mars. She said, "Don't be silly, Claire. That's beyond our means. You might not be the scholarly type. Why subject yourself to so much stress? However, She looked at my sister, who was too preoccupied to pay attention as she scrolled through her phone, and said, "We already talked about this. We are using the funds for Lila's wedding. She intends to start a family." The words struck my chest like shattered glass. Establishing a family, as though my dreams didn't matter, as if I didn't deserve to invest in my own future. My mother leaned in and whispered to me that night, "Some girls just aren't meant for college," while Lila was whirling and laughing while trying on gowns in the living room. But that's all right. You are welcome to remain and assist with household chores. Perhaps locate a good employment in the area. For someone like you, that's more feasible. Someone similar to me. I refrained from crying. Not in their presence. But after that, I began to keep secrets. I saved every dollar rather than going out to dine or buying new clothes. I took up additional shifts. Every grant, work-study program, and odd job I could find, I applied for. I subtly laid the groundwork for a future they never envisioned for me, while Lila organized a wedding that appeared to have been featured on a magazine cover. And they didn't know. Not quite yet. After my sister's engagement celebration, they requested me to assist with cleanup once more. As usual, as if she owned the air, my mother was already in the kitchen, stacking dishes and shouting directions. My father stood drinking a glass of scotch and hardly looked up. After hours of congratulations, my sister arrived, still sporting her white floral dress, flawless hair, and untarnished makeup. She gave me that phony smile that stopped short of her eyes as she cocked her head in my direction. "Could you please make sure that my automobile is filled with all of the goodies, Claire? My heels are killing me, but I would do it myself." I nodded, but there was a crack inside. I answered quietly, "I do have plans." She blinked. Plans? Yes, I did lie. Having dinner with pals. For the first time in years, I refused. In my life, perhaps. There was a dense quiet. In the middle of rinsing a glass, my mother paused. My father turned to face me. I could detect the annoyance beneath my sister's fake kindness when her face slightly moved. There was no argument between them. They didn't plead. They simply adapted, as if I were a component that could be taken out or put back in without hesitation. That evening, I returned to my flat without crying. I simply sat there and observed the lights on the ceiling as they danced from passing cars. I considered how many times I had said yes. Yes, I want to assist. Sure, I'll pay. I agreed to be discreet, silent, and practical. What had I gained from it? A reputation for being the easy one is all that exists. I started to pull away, slowly at first. I skipped the family meal, responded to texts more slowly. When my mom experienced back discomfort or my sister got a cold, I didn't inquire whether they needed anything. Not yet, and not out of rage. Self-preservation was the reason. Then I received a call from the bank one Thursday morning. "Hello, Miss Bennett. I am just checking in regarding the pre-approval documents you requested. To finish the $25,000 personal loan application, simply sign the last page." I almost spilled my coffee. "Which application?" My voice trembled as I asked. A long silence. "The one with your social security number and name on it. It's for a beginning loan for a business." My hands became icy. "I didn't apply for that." "Oh," the banker responded. "I see," in a suddenly wary tone. "Perhaps we should pause for a little till you can check the documentation." "Indeed. Please, don't give your approval to anything." After hanging up, I sat quietly. My name would be used by whom? Who would have the knowledge to fake a loan? I didn't have to do much thinking. My parents were the only two individuals who ever had complete access to my personal data. A recollection suddenly struck me like a ton of bricks. 2 weeks prior, my brother-in-law had made a joke about my sister's prospective business at the dinner table. "We might open our own bridal boutique someday, you know. Seed money is all we need." That's when I laughed. Everyone else had too. I felt like the punchline now. I took out all of my documents that evening. Each banknote, each banknote represents a unique debt. This includes any previous W-2s, bank statements, and tax returns. I printed copies. My credit report was examined. I didn't identify the other three questions, one with only my social security number, one in my name, and one in a joint application. I had trouble falling asleep. I opened my laptop around 2 in the morning and began searching for attorneys. I had no desire for vengeance. Boundaries are what I want. However, that is also the case in households like mine. I didn't barge into my folks' home. I didn't yell at them over the phone or send an angry email. I didn't inquire as to why. Instead, I launched my bank app and stopped the automatic transfer that helped with petrol, groceries, and phone bills that I had been paying them on the first of every month, the one for which they never thanked me or acknowledged me. I then checked my utility accounts and saw that, sure, the power bill was still in my name, which I had created years ago as a temporary solution when my parents were late on their payments. I modified the login. I then terminated the service. They would receive a courteous letter in the mail. They might believe it to be a system error. They might give customer service a call. However, they would eventually recognize that something had changed. I sent my bank an email the same day requesting a hold on all credit activities. My identity was stolen and I reported it. I created a folder for every document I discovered that had undergone alterations without permission, every printout that had my social security number, every question that seemed dubious. I failed to show up when the family anticipated me visiting over the weekend. Mom sent me a text. "You're where? Your sister wants to show us the many styles of bridal dresses. All of us are present." I didn't respond. The second message then appeared. "It's pretty rude to vanish in this manner, you know. Tell us that you're all right at least." I remained silent, though. She was calling by Monday. Voicemail after voicemail. "What's going on, Claire? Have I done something wrong? We're concerned." She didn't care. She didn't understand. Guilt is seldom the first thing that worried people say. My sister then texted, "Please provide me the $1,200 that we discussed. The venue requires me to pay a deposit." The message appeared to be a joke. It had only ever been her assumption and had never been discussed. She expected me to cover it, as usual. I didn't answer. An hour later, she sent another text. "Hello, have you received my message?" 3 hours later then, "Claire, really, you cannot simply ignore your relatives," as well as the following day. I informed Mom. "She is furious. You must give her a call. Right now." I realized the transition had been successful at that point. They weren't upset that I declined. They were upset that I denied them an opportunity to debate. I didn't scream, weep, or argue my point. I simply vanished from the part they had given me, and they were frightened by that silence. But I remained at a distance. I left for work. I attended class. I submitted 2 internship applications. I brought my lunch. When I could, I put in extra hours. Instead of filing charges, I wanted to know my choices. So I examined legal blogs and had a private conversation with an attorney regarding the fraudulent loan inquiry. You begin to think like someone who needs a backup plan when your own family believes you are the person who owes them money, the backup plan, and the safety net. After working a late shift one evening, I discovered an envelope hidden behind my door. My mother gave it to me. There was no mistaking the handwriting. My hands were shaking when I opened it. There was a folded letter inside. The letter consisted of a single page, written by hand. There was no apology. It was an appeal. She expressed her disappointment with my behavior. She claimed I was unappreciative of everything they had done, including the fact that my father had worked hard to provide for my food and clothing, and that I had never gone without food or a roof. I will never forget the last words she used to close the letter. "The person who has always made us proud is your sister. We simply believed that you were more obedient, compliant, similar to a pet, similar to a servant." I put the letter in my file folder after folding it. Proof. Although they didn't notice, they had just verified my fears. I had never been their daughter in the same manner as my sister. I provided assistance. Background. Quiet assistance. However, I no longer wanted to be that person, and my obedience was over. On a Thursday night, the invitation to supper arrived. It sounded like an order. On Sunday, we're all having dinner at the house. Attend. We must speak. Please don't. We miss you. No sign of comprehension. Only a call. I opened my folder after sitting for a while with the text in my palm. I placed the invitation next to my mother's letter, in which she referred to me as obedient. I didn't respond. I simply arrived. Sunday night. I wore black leggings, a navy blue jacket, and no makeup. I would rather not appear strong. However, I would rather not appear as if I was making an effort. When I got there, they were all there. At the head of the table are my parents. With a glass of wine and a bored expression on her face, my sister was sitting in her normal chair. When I entered, nobody was there to meet me, not even a nod. The chair farthest away from everyone else was the only one that was open, so I took it. There was a lot of tension in the air, as if we were acting like a family, but everyone knew we were only acting. My dad cleared his throat. "Claire, we're happy you made the decision to come at last." I didn't answer. "We're not here to fight," my mother said abruptly. "All we want to know is what's happening to you." She spoke in a sweet tone, trained, too tender to be true. My sister laughed. "She has been abandoning us. That's what's happening." I laid my folder carefully on the table after opening it. I said, "I want you to listen to what I have to say." My father laughed. "You're exaggerating." I moved one of the pages across the table. I never gave my consent for the loan investigation. My name. I am confident in my credit rating, the fake signature. His face went white. "What is this?" he inquired. "You are aware of it." My mother squinted at the page as she leaned in. "Claire, you should have simply asked whether there was a misunderstanding." I cut in to make sure there was no miscommunication. My voice remained steady. "You obtained a loan using my name, a loan of $20,000. Dad, you signed it. The bank is on file with me." His eyes darted and he mumbled, "I was going to repay it." "It isn't legal because of that." They kept quiet. So I continued. "All of my financial ties to this family have been severed. This includes all utilities, relocations, and co-signers. Additionally, I have removed the joint ownership documents for the cottage property that you filed under my name years ago." At last, my sister raised her head from her phone. "Hold on, you can't just..." I answered, staring her in the eyes. "I already did. It's finished." The face of my mother flushed. "What are you doing? We are related." I held out the last sheet, the one the lawyer had given me. "This indicates otherwise." Then I stopped. I gave them all 3 looks, one by one. I said, "I've given you everything. I have given you cash, time, help, and devotion. You told me I didn't need an education and that the money would be better used for my sister's wedding, but each time you gave it to someone else and referred to it as a family decision." "I should be thankful for what I have," you said. They remained frozen. I got to my feet. I refrained from crying. I didn't shout. I just stated, "I'm not upset. I'm finished." I closed the folder, slipped it under my arm, and went out with the same composure as when I had first arrived. I was not followed by them. Not now. Because they were unable to stop me for the first time in their lives. It was 2 weeks later. 2 weeks of peace and beauty. No phone calls, no messages, no surprise raps on my door. My phone didn't feel like a leash for the first time in years. Fearing a fresh withdrawal I hadn't approved, I walked to class without checking my bank app every few hours, drank my coffee leisurely, and slept in on Saturdays. It was odd, not because of the quiet, but because of how serene it was. After the meal on the 3rd Monday, I received an email. Not from my folks. Not from my sister, from a real estate agent, though. "Claire, just checking in on the property you recently gave up ownership of. After reviewing the revised documentation, the buyers withdrew their offer. If you would like to relist, please let us know." I read it 3 times. The cottage was put up for sale. They failed, as they had no legal power without me on the deed. I spent 2 summers remodeling the same cottage, while my dad pretended he still needed help on the job site and my sister traveled to Paris. In a way that nothing else in that family ever was, it was always mine. They also attempted to sell it without my knowledge. I never responded to the agent. I didn't have to. I already received the answer from the universe. I heard rumors later that week from a friend who was still employed by my father. His largest backer withdrew. She apparently knew about the fake loan and didn't want her name associated with a man who might be being investigated for financial crime. I said nothing at all. However, something calm and steady, a sense of justice, rather than anger, bloomed within. Not boasting. Just a deep breath that I had been holding for years without realizing it. Then the phone rang. Not from my dad, from my sister, Claire, she murmured in a weak, thin voice. We must speak. I remained silent. I am aware of your anger. Dad is in trouble, though. The business is having problems. He simply believed that using your name for the loan would be beneficial, even though he didn't mean to. It was there. Rewriting the facts to make the betrayal seem less harsh is the traditional family script. He didn't intend to. It seemed okay to him. For the family, he did it. And me? It was always expected of me to comprehend, to pardon, to correct. However, I didn't respond this time. Rather, I posed the question, is this the same family that claimed I didn't require an education? She hesitated. Her swallowing was audible to me. Claire, that was a long time ago. 5 years, I said. You have a wedding. I received a lecture on the high cost of college education. You call me now that I'm almost done with my degree with honors, incidentally because you're losing something. I waited for the silence. She began, I just think, and then stopped talking. We might have gone too far away. There was no apology. Not even ownership was involved, merely acknowledging that the harm was irreparable. And I believe that's what eventually caused me to let go. Because that day, I came to the crucial realization that I was done waiting for an apology. I wasn't holding out hope that they would notice me, appreciate me, or love me the way I'd always desired. I didn't require their blessing. Now, I was at peace with myself. I moved into a little studio apartment off campus later that month. It was mine, even though it wasn't fancy. The lease simply had my name on it. The college nearly covered my tuition costs. After graduation, my part-time position at the college library became a full-time offer. And the finest of all, I had limits. I had room. I still thought about my family on some nights. I was reminded of my mom's sorrowful sighs. I was reminded of my sister's beaming smiles, about how I felt like a shadow in my own house because of them. However, I was no longer defined by those memories. That girl was no longer me. Claire was me, at the top of her class, unrepentant, unreachable, at least to those who first thought I wasn't worthy of their money. A year has passed. That last phone call was a year ago. I never looked back after telling my sister that perhaps they had gone too far. Final papers, early library mornings, late-night coffee, and silent sobs of relief when I opened the letter announcing my graduation with honors made the final semester of college seem like a haze. It was there, evidence. Not for them, for me. Evidence that, in spite of all the voices telling me not to attempt it, I had succeeded. In spite of a family who showed me rejection and secondhand affection, I have a clear memory of the ceremony. My shoulders felt warm from the sun. Under my gown, I wore a delicate blue dress that I had saved money for with my job at the bookshop. I crossed the stage to cheers from classmates, instructors, and new friends, not relatives, when my name was called. Nobody from home arrived. I didn't think they would. They weren't the focus of that day. It has to do with me. I went home the long way after the ceremony. Not just for the coffee, but also for the life it represented. I stopped at a small cafe downtown that I used to pass on my way to class and dream about. Autonomy, silence, security. The window still had the for lease sign on it. I entered. I had the keys by September. It's simple. Shelves stocked with poetry books, vintage mugs, a few plants, and used furniture. However, it is mine. Claire's Cafe. Every morning at 7:00, I open. I brew my espresso. There are customers that come for the silence. A few customers come specifically for the croissants with almonds. Some believe I recall their names because they can tell. One occasionally think of the girl I used to be when I cleaned the counters at closing. She was the one who cleaned up after family gatherings while everyone else laughed, who was told she wasn't worth teaching, and who persevered through insult after insult in the hopes that one day she would be enough. I wish I could go back in time and give her a hug, remind her that her value was never based on her potential for use. Since all your family has ever done was darken your light, they have no right to define who you are. They returned around 3 months after I launched the cafe. Not all at once. My sister comes first. She arrived without a wedding band, in the midst of a Tuesday rush, her once glamorous hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. She placed a tea order. I personally brought it over. "Claire," she began, her gaze darting to the menu on the chalkboard and then back to me. "This place is adorable. Actually, I didn't know you. Did I do something with my life?" For her, I completed it. She grimaced. As I arrived, She apologized, but it seemed scripted. The outcome wasn't what we had anticipated. We all made mistakes, I suppose. I gave one nod. Courteous, civil. I didn't give her a seat, though. 10 minutes later, she was gone. My father then arrived via email. He wrote about how difficult things had been ever since the business came around and that perhaps, just possibly, we need to talk like adults. He probably hoped I would forget, that I would have guilt. I didn't respond. Not because I was mean. Because those who never opened the door in the first place no longer needed to give me closure. And lastly, my mom. She brought an umbrella that kept crashing in the wind to the cafe one wet morning. Silently, the first served her. She inquired about my well-being. She asked if we could get together for a quick conversation. I paid attention, and after she was done talking, I gave her a gentle smile, took her empty cup, and said, "Look after yourself." I turned away after that, not out of rage, in tranquility. Because allowing someone to hurt you again is not the goal of healing. It's about realizing that you can now live your life without their consent. I was too. Yes, I am. These days, when the store is empty, I read by the window in the afternoons. I assist young ladies with their scholarship applications as a volunteer at the community center. I also gladly respond to their inquiries about where I attended college, emphasizing that one's starting point does not necessarily dictate one's future. There are still occasional visits from the past. Whilst dreaming, in sense and in older tunes, it doesn't stay though. I don't allow it because I've created something genuine. I accomplished it without their help, without consent, not inherited. Without their faith in me, I had faith in myself. If you're viewing this, you may have heard that your dreams aren't worthwhile. Someone else might have received more attention than you. You may have been accused of selfishness for making your own decisions. I'll tell you something, you're not self-centered. You're not invisible. You are neither too much nor too little. You deserve it, without evidence, any restrictions, exactly as you are.